Like, what's a good homeschool curriculum? And I try to say, especially at the point I'm at now, I would try to tell whoever would ask me that, like, I wouldn't start there. That's not a good starting question to have. Curriculum, it does matter. Curriculum obviously matters. And I think we need to have a good curriculum that's helping our children be educated, the best kind of education they can be getting to help them forge on into the future as a sharp arrow. But the starting point really should be, I think you alluded to it even in your question, what do I want my children to be? What am I aiming for them to be? Who do I want them to reflect? And what am I asking of them at the end? Like, what's my end goal, basically? And so, well, that's outlined in Scripture, right? Because we're supposed to be image bearers and to be constantly being conformed to the image of the Son.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Feminine Glory podcast. I am one of your hosts, Lydia Edmonds, and I'm joined by my delightful co-host, Esther Edmonds.
Hello, everyone.
And today we have the wonderful privilege of having a guest join us, Miss Charity Edmonds.
AKA our mom.
Yes.
We're super excited for this one. Mom, say hello.
Hello, hello.
Charity Edmonds is a wife and mother of 4 children. She has a part-time job alongside her husband and is known in her community as an excellent bread maker. She is also the reason why her children, aka us, are the way we are today. So, if you don't like us, it's her fault. So, Mother, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Alrighty, so let's dive right into it. So, share the story and journey behind the bread making. So I mentioned that in your bio. So what started bread making for you? Because that's definitely not, as you have explained to us what you used to be like, that is definitely not how your future would have looked. So explain the bread making and why you started making your own bread, and not just making your own bread, but then milling your own wheat and that whole journey and process.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good distinction. But those two things definitely came in tandem. Milling the wheat, making the bread. I did not make any bread that I can recall ever in my life until I just dove right into the milling the wheat and making the bread, of course, which is the way I do everything.
You've taught us well.
No, no. It kind of started with a health journey with one of the kids, and our oldest son Noah. Your brother, he had some health concerns just throughout his whole life that led us to a point where he had a lot of just trouble with a lot of different things, and food was definitely one of those. And so we, via doctors and things like that, we took the journey of having to gluten-free this and gluten-free that, and then we still weren't seeing much success. On top of which, we were spending so much money with 6 people in one house to try to eat that way. And I was just flustered and kind of flabbergasted as to where to go next as a young mom. And then started asking around a few questions and heard about a local place called the Bread Beckers. And I went there for a class. And I think that the owner, Sue Becker, could tell that I was kind of at the end of my rope, and being sort of a youngerish mom, she was so helpful to me and explained to me some things that I could do, and I won't go into all that, but she thought that milling wheat would help him and help us as a family. I was really skeptical of that at first because, I was like, well, there's no magic pill to this probably, and anyway, but I did it, and I came home and told my husband, and he was like, let's try it. We have to try something and figure this out, and we did. So we got all the equipment. Another funny long story, because we started out with some used equipment, and it just was loud and made a big mess. And while we were kind of saving up to get the other stuff, but eventually we got all the equipment. But I'll tell you, those first years, I was horrible at it. It was so bad. You guys can remember. I mean, it was heavy and dense, and I didn't know what I was doing really. And I really wanted to quit several times, but we pursued on, and we soldiered on through it, and it just
bread actually made a thud when it hit the.
Oh, I mean, I didn't even want to eat it. It was awful. It was terrible, and yeah, and I mean, y'all would slather it with peanut butter and honey as much as you could possibly get on one piece of bread. Mustard, everybody was squirting mustard all. I mean, it was just really bad. And we ate it, but and I don't remember when it really took a turn. I think I just kept trying to like play with the recipes and stuff
Mm.
because I was like, if we have to have this, it has to get better. Like
Yeah.
we can't just live like this.
Right.
For which you're all
Eventually
grateful.
it got better. Yeah, eventually it got better. But then it turned into being a lot more fun when I felt like it, okay, this is all right, and we all are liking it better. It turned out to be fun to figure other recipes out, and now it's just kind of one of those things we do all the time.
Part of our routine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, bread day every week. So bread day, make all the things. So
That's
that's
awesome.
kind of how it started, I think. It was bad, but I think since then it's gotten better.
What would you say is like one it could be a book or a specific recipe or even a person that you feel like really helped make that transition and really opened your eyes as to like, oh, and then gave you like maybe like the first recipe or the first idea that really helped change the game as far as bread making goes? From
Mm,
like
I think,
the rock bread to now the light and fluffy.
yeah, I think I don't really remember exactly who told me about King Arthur,
Okay.
but I think I realized at some point learning about King Arthur that I didn't have to have a whole set of like specialty recipes for milling wheat and making things. Like you can just use normal recipes. And that was like, I know that sounds stupid. And in a way, when I realized it, I was like, boy, that is stupid. But then it was like, oh, okay, like this can be used like normal people use wheat,
Mm.
flour. And there's a few tweaks here and there with hydration, but for the most part, it's just one for one, and you can just roll with it, and then you can make all kinds of things from ciabatta to French bread to baguettes to, and that I think then when I felt like I wasn't isolated to like the one hard loaf of bread, like loaf bread, but I could do like multiple things and I didn't have to stick to like these specialty recipes. That was revolutionary for me. And then I was like, oh, I'm free to play now and I can do more and learn more. And then I think we all started to enjoy it more, which also made it a lot more fun. So
I wonder if it's just like
that's kind of how it went.
I wonder if it's just like people feel like it's drinking out of like a fire hose when you start learning about that.
It
But
is.
it's just and then
Yes.
you learn about how bad actually the flour at the store is. That like
Yes.
do they just feel
Yes.
like it's so separate? Like the categories are completely different. Do they feel like you can't mesh them together?
You really can't. And it's like nutritionally so different. Although, I mean, there are times where I'm not beyond like I just can't make something from total scratch right now. We're gonna go to the store and buy a
Tortillas.
pack of tortillas or whatever, gluten-free tortillas or almond flour tortillas or whatever it might be. So yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see kind of how it's transitioned from rock bread to like it's almost now like a ministry to other people. You know how like people are
Yeah.
really blessed by a homemade loaf. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that's the fun of it too because it does open up. Like, I remember there was one or two times before I started doing that we would go to someone's house and they would make bread and I always thought it was delicious and they would say like I milled the wheat, I made the bread and I was like, wow, homemade bread. And being so young mom, young kids, I was like, whoa, that's amazing. It seems like some kind of like far-fetched idea. I could never do that. But you're right. Now it's fun to like if somebody's sick, just take them a fresh loaf of homemade bread,
Yeah.
or things like that. So yeah, it opens up a lot of doors.
And that's awesome that now that you've learned all that, then you can take that and pass it on. Because when there are other young moms, that will come to you as we've seen, and they'll just be like, hey, I want to start this. How do I even start? Your bread is so good. How do I get to that point? And then it's awesome to see that now you can help influence the next generation of like, no, here it is. It is easier than it looks as soon as you get to know it. And
Yeah.
so you can basically, so people don't have to go through the same journey you did. Now you get the opportunity to bless them by helping them along.
That's so true. And like hopefully save them that little interim of heartache
Exactly.
that we all had to endure.
That's awesome though that you had the resilience so to keep going because it would have been so
Yeah.
easy just to give it up and be like, well, it can't be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
It's like,
I couldn't give up. Yeah. I couldn't give up too because I didn't know where else to turn. And I was like, this has to work now because he can actually eat this and it doesn't affect him poorly. And then having at that point, I had also learned about all the nutritional benefits. And so I was like, there's no turning back. This has to get better. It has to. So I guess that pressure helped me press on. I don't know.
So on that note, what is a homemaking task that you absolutely love and one that you really have to gear yourself up for?
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I don't know if this is what you mean by that question, so you can stop me if it's not. But one homemaking task that I absolutely like get geeked out, excited to do is canning in the summer.
Okay.
That is like, yeah, I just like I think about it right beforehand and get myself all excited about all the little things, all the details, all the things we're gonna can throughout the summer, obviously. But then once the day comes, it's just so fun to me. And well, it's not one day. It's many days of canning, but there's a specific weekend every summer where we do the bulk of the like stuff that we might not grow ourselves, but we know a farm to go get it. And so all of that is just incredibly fun to me. That's probably my most favorite homemaking task, although it feels kind of like play. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you said one thing I don't like to do.
Yeah, you
Yes.
have to really
Is
like
that
get in the right frame
yeah.
of mind to do it.
Oh, folding laundry. It's not hard,
Yeah.
and it's not even like having it washed and dried, but like I cannot. And so I do it like to get it over with. I'll like tackle it faster, but I cannot stand to fold, especially towels. Like I don't know why. It's not hard. It's not even laborious. It's just I hate it. I loathe a pile of unfolded things to do.
Or if it feels like you're just gonna have to do it again, like
Yeah,
think
maybe.
I guess so.
Like it's just gonna get
Yeah.
pushed back up, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
feel
I
like
guess
you're,
so.
accomplishing too much.
Yeah, that's probably it. I just really can't stand
Or
it.
you're just gonna
So
quickly unfold it.
maybe that, or like it's just this is so not fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's also very repetitive. And,
Put on a podcast or a book
Yeah.
or something, make it more fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you have successfully homeschooled 3 children with only one still in school, and he has 1 year left. So explain why you wanted to homeschool versus a private or public schooling. And even within homeschooling, the specific homeschooling that you decided, why did you decide to school us that way?
So I didn't want to do that at first. When Kevin and I got married, when Kevin and I got married, he had gone to public school his whole life, and I had been in a private Christian school my whole life. Homeschooling was something that at that time, which was 21 years ago now, I still thought it was a very uncool thing to do. I mean, I just was like, that had a specific stereotype to me still. And so definitely not something I wanted to do. I also didn't think I could ever pull it off. That was probably my biggest deterrent. I can't do that. I can't pull that off. No way. And so kicking and screaming, God definitely had other plans for me. So we talked about it a lot and just decided that for our circumstance and our location at that time, it was the best thing to do. And so we dove in, and praise the Lord, I have a mom who is an educator and had educated at the kindergarten level for, I mean, dozens and dozens of years and still does to this point. And so she was really helpful and kind of gearing me up for it. Although she was definitely more excited about it than I was at that point to like get me started and get me going. With all of the fun, she's like, the fun. And I was, oh no. It's just not my personality to be super giddy about phonics or reading or anything like that. I'm like, just read. Like, just come on, follow the rules and read. But we dove in, and once we dove in, I realized very quickly this is what I want to do. It's not going to be an easy path or an easy journey, but I definitely love having everybody here. I love watching the development. That's one thing that's like so rewarding that I think like I had to come to that realization of like, okay, this is hard. It's time taking for sure. And difficult, especially when you're in the throes of, okay, I've got one child schooling, and then I've got an infant and a toddler, and maybe one that's almost ready but not quite. I mean, that is just a difficult, like, major split of like how you're kind of thinking day to day.
Right.
And once I realized, like, oh, wait, I can make this pattern however I need to for our specific home.
Yeah.
And it can even change day in and day out. If someone's sick, it can change, or if someone's teething, it can change. You know what I mean? And so once I realized that, like, there's specific standards that we want to have, and I can follow those standards, not everyone else's standards for me. It really took a turn in my attitude and even my desire for year to year. And then, of course, as everybody gets older, it just gets more and more fun. So it's a really great experience. Hard, but great.
So, in light of schooling, specific question for you: if you could have tea or coffee with any woman from history, who would it be and why?
Ooh, I think probably Katie Luther, Catherine von Bora.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, well, thank you. I think I think that her okay, so what I would want to talk to her about is her life. That was like a hard transition probably for
Okay.
her to go from what all that she had been up until the point of marriage,
Yep.
Right.
and really basically like on her own, to then not only like diving into marriage, but diving into marriage with Martin Luther
Yep.
and all that that entailed.
Yeah.
And then the stories that you read about her, she just seemed like she was a fearsome woman, and like purposeful living, intent living, and also a great helpmate. So I would love to pick her brain, not only about the historic time she lived in, oh my goodness, but then being wife to one of the reformational heroes that we have. That's an incredible, it would be an incredible conversation. I would have like just pages of questions for her. So
Wasn't there
I would pick her.
wasn't there a story like he was being a bit of an nincompoop and like
Oh yeah.
being like in the depths of despair?
Yeah, I wouldn't know because like
Oh yeah.
because Martin Luther, I didn't know this, but it wasn't until I read Popes and Feminists by Miss.
Oh yeah, that's a great book, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
it's super good. If you guys haven't read it, you should read it. It's very good.
Great book.
And she I think he was having one of his like depression spouts
In
or
the
whatever.
doldrums?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and he was like moving out of the
Doldrums.
house, and so she decides to like sit in the middle of a room with all black, and
Oh yeah.
he comes to her and he's like, Catherine, what's wrong? And she's like, he's
Yeah.
dead. And he's like, who's dead? She's like, he's dead. I can't believe he's dead. He's like, who's dead, Catherine? And she's like, God's dead. And then he's like, what are you talking about? God is not dead. Her reply was, oh, I just assumed by the way that you were moping about the place that God must have died.
I love that. I love that so much. I just think her personality would be great to talk to her and learn from her.
Yes.
She
Very
seems
good.
like one of those friends that would let no nonsense go by.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Those are the best kind of friends to have.
Oh my word.
The ones that will just look you dead in the eyes and tell you your tune stinks. You just need to stop and change course.
Yep.
But
I love that.
honestly, like you'll probably have the most fun with that friend though, just because
Oh my
they
goodness,
are so
yeah.
honest and such a good companion. Like
Yeah.
just to tell you the straight up truth. So
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So going back to the schooling, there are many different ways out there to school your children. So in light of that, what type of mindset do you think mom needs to have when it comes to deciding what kind of education they're going to give their children? So maybe not necessarily where they're going to put them. So not necessarily like a private school or homeschooling or a public school, but what kind of mindset do you think women need to have as far as what type of children they want their children to be? And so, so what would you say as far as that goes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I get that sometimes, but it's more in line with curriculum. Like, what's a
Okay.
good homeschool curriculum? And I try to say, especially at the point I'm at now, I would try to tell whoever would ask me that, like, I wouldn't start there. That's not a good starting question to have. Curriculum, it does matter. curriculum obviously matters. And I think we need to have a good curriculum that's helping our children be educated, the best kind of education they can be getting to help them, forge on into the future as a sharp arrow. But the starting point really should be, I think you alluded to it even in your question. What do I want my children to be? What am I aiming for them to be? Who do I want them to reflect? And what am I asking of them at the end? Like, what's my end goal, basically? And so, well, that's outlined in scripture, right? Because we're supposed to be image bearers and to be constantly being conformed to the image of the Son. So there's the end all goal is I want these to be men and women who are being conformed to the image of the Son and sanctified in him so that they can faithfully bear the image of Christ. And so that if that's the goal, then I think we need to back up from there. And it seems kind of like broad, especially if you're young and you're just starting this journey. That sounds like, well, thank you for the Sunday school answer that's obvious to all. But really, it's an exercise in practicality, because if you sit down, and I also think too this, it's not up to the woman alone. It's kind of like we don't decorate our homes just how we want them to be decorated. At least we shouldn't be, doing that. We should ask our husbands, here's the place that we all live and you pay for probably, but I'm going to decorate it however I want it to be. And never ask you anything. No, it's my Pinterest board and my friends. No, I think it's probably common, and especially even in Christian circles, because homeschooling is part of that. Even Reformed Christian circles, if there's not a good Christian school around, classical Christian school around, probably even more so. But it's common that it's like on the wife, and she's doing the teaching, the majority of it probably, to not think of maybe your husband's input. And if he's not jumped in to understand even what you're doing, you just may need to say, hey, how do you think we should educate the children? Do you have any input on this? And just ask, Thankfully we call him Principal Kevin, and he was on it all the time, like what's going on with everybody, how are they learning, what are they doing. But I think start with the end goal in mind. Definitely get your husband's input on the matter. You're both raising these children together. You are doing the bulk of the teaching, but not without him. And then back up from there. Okay, well then what steps need to be taken? And I mean, like, write them out, maybe what steps need to be taken to be headed towards that goal. And education matters, and it's not outlined by the state. It should be clear. You follow the state rules that you're in, but then it should be clear that, okay, there's all these, math and science and grammar and composition and all that's very important. Literature. Okay, that's all very important. We need to do that. But then inside that, it all needs to be geared towards this biblical foundation, and then lots of fun and reading along the way, so that education needs to be something that outlives the 12th grade. Right. And you want to gear your children to be lifelong learners and thinkers and not just followers. So that's a lot, but I think mostly, I guess, if I was to give a super simple answer, I would have to say it's a daily praying of Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And then it's constantly like, help me not to lean on my own understanding, but to trust you in all my ways. And then he'll direct and guide you.
That's very, very good.
That's awesome.
So in light of, raising children to be, learning outside of just school, like beyond the 12th grade, as you were saying, what's a healthy way, particularly with girls, to approach the weekly side of church life without it feeling forced or overwhelming? Like, I think a lot of people, they enjoy, like, being talked to, but they don't know quite how to, like, work the room. They're not just so much like, all right, I'm gonna go, that person's all alone, I'm gonna go talk to them. So how would you,
or like, even, you have the moms and they're busy with their young toddlers, and so they're preoccupied, and so they don't really talk to people unless they're approached. Right. Or even some people just feel sorry for oneself if they are all alone and they don't actually go and approach other people. They just stand in a corner.
Yeah, so what would be your advice to, like, young girls on how to approach that?
Yeah, I think it's important to go in with the mindset of I'm not going to receive, I'm going to be part. And so, what is my part in this? And these are your brothers and sisters in Christ, especially if you're part of a church where covenant renewal worship is how things are structured. I think even more so. We're going in having been prepared, hopefully from the night before, with the mindset of this is a very, very purposeful and joyful event. And I'm going with that mindset. Therefore, I'm not going with an idea of let me just go in here and see who can fill my cup. But okay, what is my piece in this? And we all have a part in it. That's clear from scripture. And so then go like live that out. See in the room like you said about the toddler or the baby. Go look for that person and don't think like, well, they never come and talk to me. Well, they're busy. And so go over to them. How are you? How was your week? And I think those are how good relationships can be formed within the body. And it's vital, especially if you notice, then probably that's your cue from God to go do something about it. So I think going in with the mindset is everything. And it's hard, right? Because we all have bad weeks or hard weeks or long weeks or busy and have 100 things on our mind. But to like set yourself up for the mindset of I'm going in to explode with joy and I want to honor the Lord even in the 5 minutes before the service or after if you have a fellowship meal or whatever.
That's awesome.
It's very good.
Yeah, I think that's really good because I think most people just don't look past the end of their own nose, and it is just like they go to receive and to be served, and they're not thinking like if the more you give, like you're a side character in someone else's story, you're not the main character.
Yes.
Right.
And so it's like
Yeah.
the more and more that you give, the more and more you'll feel fulfilled. And so it's like
Yes.
just lay your life down for others and
Yeah.
go help, especially if you're younger. I feel like you have much more opportunity to like go help the moms,
Yeah.
or just talk. And more often than not, I feel like if you just go up and start asking people questions, then you'll have no problems carrying on a conversation with most people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And how ironic, right, that we go in to celebrate someone who laid their life down literally for us while we were still in sin. But we're going to walk in as if, but that's not my job here to lay my life down for anyone.
Christ did it for me, but I sure as heck am not doing it for you.
Coming to celebrate Christ, but don't expect me to copy it.
I'm just coming to fill the fields,
It better be a good sermon.
But nothing about my sin. 'Cause that's a bridge too
No,
far.
no.
I just want to feel all happy inside.
Yeah. Hilarious.
Okay, so speaking of moms, what piece of advice would you give to moms for each stage of their children's growth? So, you have the babies, then the toddlers, and then you have the,
Oh,
I
goodness.
guess it's called like the tween years now. And then you've
Oh,
got
yeah.
like the
Mhm.
teenagers, and then you've got the adults. So, what advice would you give for each stage?
Yeah, so I think starting out, I think it's super important that moms, especially as their children are babies, that the babies know they are important in the sense of like your child can always have face-to-face time with you. Like if they need you, they can look you in the eyeballs and you're going to look them back in the eyeballs and they know you're there for them. I think like that's something that is when our kids were the youngest, the baby. I mean, we had at one point we had 4 kids 5 and under. And at that stage, the whole cell phone craze was not huge yet. And so I didn't have to fight any of that. You had my eyeballs and you knew if I look at my mom, she will listen, she will talk back to me, we can carry on a conversation and she will look at me and I know she knows I'm here and all those things that are so important. But now that's a different story. So I think that would be one big thing. And I think that's kind of not talked about a lot, but very important because they need to know from the get-go from the very beginning. Your little infant is looking around the room, can lock eyes with you and see, like, oh, my mom notices me, my mom knows me. And I think also that stems from just C.S. Lewis, The Weight of Glory. It's just literally one of my favorite pieces of literature that talks about the immortal souls and all of that. And I think that stems from that mindset. And moms especially need to have that. That should carry on throughout the stages that you're talking about, but especially when they're young, because you're forming that foundation then. If a 2-year-old hasn't been in the hasn't had the ability of being able to connect with you on a very personal level and understand that you are kind of a safe space, but also a nurturing space for them, you're not going to capture that down the road as much as you can capture it from the beginning and then foster it all the way through. So that would be one thing. And then I think the best piece of advice I would say, as far as like the stages continue, is you yourself are growing and changing. And so you're the mom, like myself, like I need to be, my role is changing constantly. And so I'm a complete nurturer 100% of the time at the baby and infant stage. But then they need me less and less and less and less. And that should be the model, because you should be training them and teaching them to not need you as much. But then all along the way, understanding, okay, my role is changing, because it would be completely awkward if I told a 10-year-old daughter, come on over here now, it's time to brush your teeth, you know.
Yeah.
But then moms can tend to do that, though, in certain aspects and not even know that we're doing it. You know what I'm saying? And so you're doing your job in such a way, especially at the smallest age, to train that, like going back all the way to the why are you, kind of like you're training into them all the time, like, why are you here? Well, I'm here to be an image bearer, right? And so the training is all geared toward that. And then you have to do it less and less and less and less as they go along. And then by the teenage years, there should be just a lot more freedom and friendship there. Instead of the more kind of alpha dogging, for lack of a better term, way you might be at the 2-year-old stage. You should definitely be being able to, when you get to the teenage girl stage, there should not be any time where your daughters are even thinking to roll an eye or huff out of a room, because you've trained that out at 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so by the teenage years, it's not going to be perfect, but it should be better than that, because all along the way, the goal is conform to the image of the Son, an image bearer. That puts a lot on the mom to be doing that herself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To not get in a huff or a tude and display that and teach that by displaying it. But then I think also, as you are able to do less and less as far as the day-to-day, like proactive discipline and training, you're also able to enjoy it more and more and more and more and more. And then when you get to the tween or teen stage, it is just gobs of fun. I mean, just incredibly enjoyable, because at the beginning you set kind of a precedent. So.
The teenage girl stage is often associated with lots of trends. You know, the girls are kind of coming into their own, I guess, and exploring, you know,
Yeah.
trends out there. So what's one trend you just can't get behind, and why?
One trend I can't get behind.
This could be any
Well,
Yeah,
like this could be a design trend, this could be a fashion trend, anything.
okay.
Marketing trend.
I think I cannot get behind all the khaki colors in decorating.
yeah, that's
I just cannot get on board with that. It's not, yeah, so like I guess if my husband liked it, I would be like, okay, that's what we'll do. And we'll try to add some little flares here and there to make it more homey, but I cannot. It just I like life all around the house and the vibrancy of, like, there's books everywhere and there's stuff everywhere that's going on. And so, yeah, I can't get behind. And along with that, the khaki kind of thing is like the khaki, like going the old school aprons and all that. I'm like, that just shows the most dirt. Why would you want that color? And I get it. If you like that, if you like that kind of thing, go for it. But I'd have that thing dirty in 30 minutes. So, and the house, the khaki house for that matter. No, I can't get behind all the monochrome, you know, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's just not for me.
You know, I feel
Good
like
for you, that's fine.
yeah, color brings a certain sort of joy that I feel like
It does. Yeah.
Well, like
within your four walls of your house.
God obviously
Yeah.
designed the world with color. You know, you can have the base like green,
Mhm.
brown, and blue.
Yeah.
But then there's lots of color that's just kind of explodes on the scene surrounding the
Yes.
base. And so I feel like that's something we should be emulating.
Well, like even
Yeah.
the blue, it's like how many people have blue in their house?
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? But it's like
Yeah.
especially like the combination of like blue and green. But the
Right.
Lord clearly likes
Yeah.
the color.
Yeah.
So
They're together every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, and so now we've jumped into the opposite ditch where we're like no color, monochromatic, khaki, everything, all the way to now let's color drench something bright red. Or what I'm like, oh, I feel dizzy from all this.
Medium.
yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
we keep just swinging the pendulum, and it's like let's go
Yeah.
extreme this way, extreme this way.
Yes, yes,
Just get a happy medium.
yeah,
Develop some style.
yeah, yeah.
So, what is your favorite thing about motherhood overall?
Ooh, I have a love-hate relationship, or I have more love with the loud chaos of it all. Like, I think it's just so much fun, especially when everyone's at home and there's like conversation and always music playing and um probably just laughter and getting everybody together in the kitchen. That is like one of my most favorite things because it's super loud and obnoxious and just crazy. And it's just so much fun. And I think I liked that even when y'all were all little, where you would just be playing like crazy in a room together and all the noise and the the guttural laughter and all that stuff. I just think it's so fun. So I might have to do some recordings of that and play it on a playlist when everybody's gone.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, and that's probably my favorite thing is the chaotic noise of it all. And people in and out all the time and
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it. It's so fun.
Speaking of loud music in the kitchen, if your life had a soundtrack, what would one song on it be?
just one.
Oh man.
Answer.
Classical, country,
Mhm.
pop,
I didn't
rap?
know where you were gonna go with this one, so I'm interested to hear it.
Yeah. I think I would have to say the William Tell Overture because it's all like fast.
Yeah, we'll roll with that.
I think that would be the whole album. There we go. That would be it. The whole soundtrack. The William Tell Overture again and again and again.
Someone's benevolently influenced by Elijah's musical lessons at Bohemian Academy. Oh my. Okay, we'll take it.
I thought
You know,
all right.
the whole build up to I mean that just feels like my everyday.
The fact that
Perfectly
you even
depicts
knew
it.
the name of that song just cracks me up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's not, I thought you were gonna choose a song with words. That's not where I was expecting that.
No, goodness no.
That does fit
No.
your like
It does.
based on like what is constantly surrounding your day. It does feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think
Yeah,
that's
you
hilarious.
never know.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's awesome.
So, awesome and light.
We have to get it together.
Noisy musical kitchen and household. If you had a free day with no responsibilities, how would you spend it?
I would sleep. I would sleep all day. I would know, seriously. So I remember, I cannot remember how old everybody was, but it was old enough for everybody to know. And Kevin and I were gifted a cruise. I don't even remember the details, but we were gifted a cruise. And we were like, okay, we should take this offer. And so um, we went on the cruise. I think you guys probably stayed with grandparents. I can't really remember any of the details. This was years ago. And it was like 2 days, 2 full days into this cruise, and people started looking for us that knew us that were also on the cruise. Like, where are Kevin and Judy? We were literally sleeping. We
Catching up for lost time.
we were so tired. We just need a second. Just give us a second. We will reappear after we catch up on our sleep. No, I would totally sleep. I might emerge at some point and just drink a ton of coffee and then cap it all off with a sit on the back porch. Something
Wait, are
nice
you
to drink.
saying that
Probably what I would do.
even when the kids are older, it's almost like you still have infants as far as sleep goes?
It's worse. Okay. Yes. So you're giving me a good opportunity to talk about that because it is hard.
Okay.
It's hard when you have an infant. It's hard. I've done it 4 times. It's hard. Especially that first couple of months. There's nothing quite like that. But the common misperception is that when your children can all bathe themselves and brush their own teeth, that you get like this magical life back. And it's not true because just about that time, your oldest child doesn't need to go to bed at 7 anymore. They get to stay up longer, and then everybody stays up longer and longer. Pretty soon you're like, can we just please all go to bed? Can everyone please go to bed? It's 12, please. Can we go to sleep?
So you're saying the
Whoa,
me time
it's
goes
wild.
away?
Yeah, that is such a joke. There is no such thing.
Speaking of
No such
not
thing.
laying your life down.
Yeah. No, really. No, you can't. You don't tell a teenager go to bed at 8:30. You just
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah.
So, at least you shouldn't.
With our crazy society, I wouldn't be surprised. There are
Oh
some
my
out there.
goodness. Yeah.
What's something that always makes you laugh no matter what? It may be something funny your husband does, dad does, maybe something funny one of your kids does, or perhaps, a song they play, but what's something that always makes you laugh?
Yeah. I was thinking about this question, and I get frustrated. And when I get frustrated, like if I like get flustered, not like sinfully frustrated, but just any kind of like drama maybe. I have a tendency just to laugh in my frustration. I don't get mad, I just laugh and giggle. And I also have a bad problem of laughing when I shouldn't.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
you pass that
yeah.
one on, and
Yeah, I did.
yeah, it's
Did my duty. Yeah. Congrats.
But it's really funny when we're all in the same area, and then someone
Oh, it's
inevitably
bad.
every time does something, and it's just like,
Yeah.
do not look, do
Well,
not look at
especially,
Leah,
like-
do not look at mom.
Especially if you're like at like a wedding or
Oh, man.
We're in
something.
church or something.
and you're not supposed to be laughing, and it's kind of
Oh,
more
yeah.
tight quarters, and then something happens,
Yeah.
and you like, can't get it together.
Okay, yeah. It's the worst when probably the three of us are in a group talking with somebody and they say something that is not quite right. Maybe. Or- And we all know, yeah. It's really, I'll have a hole in my lip by the end of that night.
Oh,
Those
right.
are always the worst,
Yeah.
just from trying not to laugh.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
No, then
either that or I'll walk away and leave you two to it.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything possible that could get you up, like
Yeah.
especially at the dinner table? It's the worst because
Oh.
everyone's facing one another, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
if I could just, and so then you're like furiously looking through, like, does anybody need a refill?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You just down your
Well,
drink.
like, yeah, like there was one time this happened too. I think you guys were put at some kind of kid table.
Okay.
We were at something, and I think they had all the kids at some kind of kid table. I'm not really sure. And the food was all out on the table, like just it was nice, and everybody was kind of passing the serving dishes around. And there was one that was like somebody had grown these sweet potatoes, and they looked more like fingerling size sweet potatoes, but they were quite obviously sweet potatoes. And they were in some kind of like syrup. I don't know. And so they were getting passed around, and there was a girl near me, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I love cooked carrots." And wasn't really that funny, except that no one corrected her. And so I was like, "Oh my word, this is awful." I just need to get up and leave for a minute because I could not stop.
Oh my
It's
word, that's so
funny.
funny.
That kind of thing just gets me really tickled.
Yeah.
Or
My husband makes me laugh too. He is hilarious. So,
talk about you're gonna recount that story to
Oh
someone.
yeah. That's the roughest
Like,
part.
oh my word.
Yeah, because you're like everyone knew. What's that like commercial? And it's like we all see it. We all see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone sees it, and so you're like,
Oh yeah.
oh, and so because you know it's gonna be talked of later on in the evening, among
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes.
or like it's
For
even
sure.
funnier too when you have things like that people don't notice but you noticed, and it's like kind of a
Yeah.
secret thing that may have happened, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my word, did you see?
Yeah.
We were at a dinner, and for whatever reason they had the food all in the middle of the table, like all aligned. And they
Mhm.
had a kids table. This is when I was younger. They had a kids table, and then they had an adult table. And they had all the food in the center of the adult table. But this is like a really long table, and so it was very awkward too because all the kids had to like with their short little arms reach around in the middle of the table, and you're like, who thought of that brilliant idea? Oh, that's just awful. That's
By
cruel.
just being on your head.
Yeah, no. So okay. So speaking of that, so
Excuse me, mister. Well, I need some more mashed potatoes.
Can you reach
Pardon
over
me?
here, please? Bring that over your shoulder. And no, and so I remember I was younger, and so I was reaching for like I think it was chicken or something, and I had dropped it in the person's cup, but they weren't seated. Like, just walk away. Don't say anything. No. No. Why not say things in that setting?
Oh, that's funny.
But I remember even like the setup didn't make sense either because it was like
Oh.
really fine china that all the food sat in, but like the cups were solo cups, and so it didn't make any sense to me. The whole setup,
Child, and I know this is wrong.
yeah, well, the whole setup was just it was like, what in the world?
Oh my goodness.
It's like one of the where it was like you could just tell that it was one of the situations where you're like, the lady that was hosting it was just in such a state, and she had so much help. She had help. Like, she definitely had help, so it could have been nicer, but it was one of those where it was like one of those personalities where you could just tell it was like
Oh yeah.
feeling blah about the whole thing. And it was one of those
Yeah.
obligatory events, so it was just very funny.
Oh no.
All around, it was just a comedy of errors.
Oh, that's so funny.
So, on a more serious note, in closing, what's something that stood out to you recently that captured the essence of feminine glory?
This is kind of a tough question. I mean, it shouldn't be, right? But I was like, okay. So we usually have a garden, and last year we didn't I like to garden for various reasons. And so this year when we went to plant the garden, because we put chickens all over the spot where we're going to plant, there had been a lot of good things happening in that soil and lots of things growing. And so it was harder to kind of get ready for garden beds this year. And so we had to bring in the big guns, and the boys took care of it and got all the garden spaces ready. And then I always think about like putting seed in the ground as like this special thing that a homemaker gets to do. I know it's not everybody's thing, but because it's part of what we do consistently, when it goes in the ground, it's just something that's like super special because it's this small act. Like my part in this time of the garden is like, definitely part of the planning and what's going where and what we're going to grow. But then the boys are doing all the like heavy lifting at this stage, and then I get to go in and beautify it with the seed, which is then gonna like feed everyone later. And I think overall that's such a cool picture of like how even marriages can work too. You know what I'm saying? Where the husband can go in and like nurture and love as Christ loves the church, but then the woman, being the glory of the glory, can go in and take that her part of being a helper and turn a profit on it to where then it feeds the whole family in return, even the husband who did that hard work at the beginning. And I think I would have to say that as my answer. It's like there's nothing glorious or sexy about putting seed in the ground unless you think about what's about to come up. So this is probably really silly, but I was planting popcorn, so the specific popcorn that everybody likes, and it's like this tiniest little corn kernel that we dehydrated from another crop we did years ago. That how fun! Like I'm putting the small little seeds in the ground along the way, and then I was thinking about, Lord willing, if this crop is blessed, then well, I guess in the fall we'll have countless times where we pop this and enjoy it together.
Yeah.
And so I think that captures the essence of feminine glory as it is all by itself, but then also as a metaphor for how just in general it should all work, of taking something and then planting it with a purpose in order to bless your husband and the family as a whole.
That's cool too.
So I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but
Oh yeah. And then too, you get to work. He kind of sets the parameters of the mission or vision for what's about to take place, and then as you're saying, you get to come in and glorify it. That's a really neat perspective.
Yeah.
Which I think that's also beneficial as far as like how the whole Christian mindset goes. Is like the Lord set the parameters, obviously, with all the commandments.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think it's Fodi Bakum that originated with this, and it's like they did a study and they put a fence around the kids. And what they found is that the kids would play all the way up to where the fence was. I think this was at a church or maybe a school or something. And they would play all the way to the edge of the fence. And then they took away that fence, and all the kids stayed around the building. And it was like,
wow,
because they didn't feel protected. And so they didn't want to wander off too far. And so it was like that mindset of, when you are given parameters and when you are given borders, and a boundary as to where you can go, it really does help you to thrive in the spot where you're in, because it's, your place.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so true. I completely agree with that. It's just, and I do fully understand gardening is not something that everybody is cut out for, nor should they be. It's not, I'm not saying it, you should. If you want to be a faithful homemaker, you should plant a garden. But there are endless metaphors with it. Endless. Constantly in every stage of the game, endless metaphors for life. And then you can look and see like, oh, agriculture is used many times in the New Testament and the Old, how God teaches his children and his people. So it's really cool. I enjoy it.
Yeah, you understand that a lot better when you garden.
Yeah.
Oh, it's clear.
Yeah. Yeah, not to mention that's why every year during this season I always have dirt under my fingernails.
That's awesome.
Always have the farmer's finger. Always.
That's awesome. Well, Mom, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It was so fun.
We want to get you and Dad on, though, soon for a Christmas special. You guys can talk about the deep inner
Yes.
workings of Christmas.
That'd be fun. He's the Christmas guy. Ooh. Yeah. You definitely need to have him on, him on and me because he's the mastermind and I just follow along, fulfilling the ABCs of it.
You beautified it. He started
Yeah,
it.
he lays out the vision though, and then I go to town working on it.
Yeah, but the elements.
Which is so fun.
Yeah. But you both as a team
Dynamic
just makes it so much fun. Like, yeah.
That's so fun.
We could talk about it all the time.
True. True.
Pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Alrighty, guys.
Everyone.
Bye, guys.